This is Resonance, a podcast for leaders that unpacks the power of song, silence, and strategy.
We believe that great leadership begins with deep listening, not just to others, but to the still small voice within.
It's not just about being a successful leader, it's about being soulfully aligned as well.
In a world moving fast, Resonance invites you to pause and reconnect with purpose, people, and possibility.
We'll dive into some cool stories, celebrate with friends, and dig deep into the music too. 'Cause song has a way of saying what words cannot alone.
So whether you're leading a business, a team, or just trying to lead your own life with more meaning, this is Resonance.
Resonance.
Resonance. Welcome to Resonance. I'm Steve Azar. Not sure exactly which episode this is. I know I'm wearing the same shirt if you're watching on YouTube that I wore the last time, but don't fear. Fear not. This shirt is clean. It's just we did back-to-back recordings, so hang in there. Excited to have my partners in crime, if I may say. Not even close to crime. This is a beautiful thing. Randy Harrington and Mike Ferrell. As always, we're having a blast doing this. Today, we're going to talk about transparency. You know, it's a recipe for disaster if you don't have it in everything that you do, every walk of life, business, family, you name it. So, Randy, let's start with you. Why do you think transparency is so important in how you run your organization and how you treat people and how you make progress?
Sure. I think that, one of the reasons Subway sandwiches took off back in the day is because there was something really delightful about watching somebody make your sandwich. There was a sense of transparency. It wasn't that the sandwich was being made in some back room back there and God knows what was in it. You saw that sandwich being made, and therefore you had a sense of trust that you would like that sandwich even more. And if you had some control over it, I want more of this and less of that, then it's even more your sandwich. So I think that really
You're making with them.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's kind of what transparency feels like to me. It's like, can I see what's going on? Do I have a sense of trust that I understand what's going on? Do I think what's going on is fair and equitable and so forth? And if that's there, then you have a completely different relationship with the people that are working with you or your customers or whatever. But of course, transparency is also a challenging thing from a business perspective. I think that you're going to see explosive things occur in the marketplace over the next 24 months. I'm talking about 2026, 2027. You're going to see major things like ChatGPT. Boom. All of a sudden it's there. Nobody had heard about this. And then all of a sudden one day it's just turned on. Well, it was a decade of work to bring that thing to life. But of course, nobody's going to talk about that because that's proprietary business secret. You're going to lose your business and your money if you don't release that information at the right time. So transparency also implies the opposite, that there's times when really keeping a secret or keeping something in the back is extraordinarily important for your business. And it's that tension that really makes for interesting business conversations. And so I've been in the boardrooms a lot of different boards of directors, and they'll begin by saying, I think we should be completely transparent. By God, I think we should just put it on out there. And then somebody will say, so we should say what the directors are getting paid? No, let's not say what the directors are being paid. We don't want that. We don't want to be transparent about that. We want to be transparent about everything else. It's like, no, it doesn't really work that way. So that's what the transparency problem is.
Yeah,
right?
I think that, I think the other thing that can happen when there isn't transparency, and certainly I think you see that across wide swaths, not only of business today, but of our life in general, the lack of transparency creates division.
Yes.
And when it begins to create division, now you start dealing with rumors, you start dealing with half-truths, you start dealing with things that may or may not happen, but because there's a lack of transparency, people are begin to come to their own conclusions.
You betcha.
And that's a very, very dangerous thing. That, as Steve said when we started, it's a recipe for disaster. And certainly, I mean, there is, as you talked about, Randy, there's selective transparency, but I think there has to be enough transparency so that these problems aren't created in the standpoint of creating divisions. So I think that lack of transparency, I think, causing divisions is a real challenge. And Steve, I know you've had some experience with that lack of transparency in the music business on a few occasions.
You kidding me? You didn't know? Let's just say the truth was hidden deep inside a vault at times, and they didn't even have the combination to it. They lost the combination. That's how non-transparent they were. And I got to tell you, it affects the business. It affects how everything is done. You all want to be on the same page to be as successful as you can. And that's and I've seen it not be that way because of that.
Well, this is the Colonel and Elvis Presley, right? I mean, this is the story as old as time, right? Just the artist is
king of rock and roll,
singing their heart out there and getting.
Yeah. I mean, think about that. I mean, you think about he could have gone overseas and made all that money in one night that he was making in a year. Am I being a little bit exaggerated? I don't think I am. And of course, Colonel couldn't go over there because he couldn't go, you know. So instead, Elvis was doing 2 shows, or how many shows a day, and having to take whatever he took to be able to perform that show. It's physically impossible with the effort that he put into a show, all that he put into it. It was so physical on his body that it was physically impossible to do it without the help of something.
Right.
I can't imagine as an artist.
You're saying it kind of led him into the drug world.
For a day, you need to recover. You need to take an ice bath, like an athlete that just got through playing a complete football game, and you're going like, oh, guess what? Hey, go shower off, put a new uniform on. We're playing again another 4 quarters. It's impossible. And so do that every day. Well, you know, Elvis, it was awful. So he wasn't transparent to Elvis, and because of that, Elvis died at 44 years old. I think 44. Is that right?
Sounds right to me.
1977, I believe. Am I right? I think I'm right.
That's right.
I think so. Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
I'm not great with years and birthdays and all that, but I'm great with remembering when it happened and where I was. And that was a big blow to all of us.
So if I'm a musician and I'm talking, is the idea that, well, no, it's not transparent and it's not your job to know this stuff. Your job is to get on the stage and do the song. We'll take care of everything else. Or is there more of a discussion now that says, no, we want you to be a part of the whole business enterprise of this?
The way it is now, how you're getting there, there's not a lot of development coming from the label side, a lot of the publishing houses as well. It's happening. You're developing yourself. So you already know so much of what it is before they grab you up. And then they want to do a deal with you because you've already created the base that helps them secure at least a little bit of hedging their bet. You know, they got a little bit better odds, although still the batting average is the same. It's not a great batting average. In regular business, if you were as successful as you are in the music business, no businesses would work. It's impossible. So you can't be, 24%, bat 240. It's a good decent batting average in the majors, not great, decent. You can do that in the record business and be successful. But if you imagine you batted 240 out of 1,000 in your regular business with all of your employees and all that, you'd fall apart, right?
Right.
If you had a business tomorrow. So, it's funny that you bring up this whole transparency thing because there were a lot of secrets, a lot of things behind closed doors, and that affected your daily. It really affected everybody. So certain secrets that they would keep just should not have been kept because everybody needed to know to better themselves and be more prepared for the disaster that might be right in front of you. So anyway, it's very interesting.
Secrets are a problem, and we can feel them a mile away, but at the same time, it's very difficult. People are different. I guess I'll say it this way: some people really have a need to know, and they really want to understand everything that's going on. Other people are like, no, just if I'm going to be making these things, that's all I'm doing. That's fine. I don't need to know the whole big picture.
Yeah.
But I think the question is, if I expect an employee to be solving problems, to be innovative, and to be a good team player, if I want those 3 things, then I need to increase the amount of transparency in my whole organization. If I'm not transparent, I'm not going to get innovation because I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing. So how can I make it any better or different?
Right.
So if you're in a place, and there are jobs where, I went out in the summer and picked some blueberries and they did not care. It was like, it's like you just pick, when you bring back the blueberries are it. So I'm not worried about your motivation. I'm not worried about anything else. You're going to go do this thing. Fine. don't need transparency there. But boy, everywhere you're trying to talk about the stuff that most business people are worried about, some level of transparency is critical. And this is where I think one of the things, Mike, I'm going to come to you on, where I'm seeing the real crunch is it's not about the macro level transparency of the vision. This is my vision and mission. People
Right.
will talk about that all the time. It's really about the transparency that comes from those mid managers. What's really important? How is this going to be perceived? Will this give me a bonus? Is this going to cause us trouble? And so good managers are like the offensive coordinators, the people, they're not the head coach, but they're the ones that are working with those teams. And that's where that real transparency value shows up. Would you agree, Mike?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting that we're talking about this topic today because I was in a board meeting this morning, and and it was a school situation, and there was the conversation came up about the horrible school shooting in Minneapolis at
Yes.
Annunciation School there, and what was this school doing from a safety perspective. And so there are some parents that are sending messages to the school saying, man, we need armed guards out there. We need all this and this and this. And the school president was saying, certainly, and some of these things we've already done, some of these things we can do, some of them we can't do based on grants and funding and all of those kinds of things. But I think he was really kind of looking at it from a standpoint of how do I be transparent, but also make people understand that this is something that we've been working on for a long time. It just didn't happen because this shooting happened, a
Right.
couple weeks ago. So I think that being transparent, part of being transparent is communication. It's how you communicate and it's how often you communicate. Every leader that I have ever worked with, one of the things that I tell them is there is no such thing as over communication. And I think you can be transparent by giving that information. It doesn't have to be, this whole thing that you're dumping on people. It can be done in bits and pieces based on the situation, based on the topic that you're talking about, based on what's going on with the people that you're involved with. But if you're communicating what's going on and you're not trying to pull the wool over people's eyes to say, I'm trying to hoodwink you on saying what exactly is going on, I think it really allows you to engage with people and to build that trust and that cooperation, because Randy, and you've said this on the show before, they can smell this stuff from a mile away.
Yeah.
And if you're not giving them the facts, if you're not giving them the information that they need, and you're giving them a bunch of BS, they're going to figure that out. And I think that that's where leaders really have to look at that transparency aspect and say, not only do I have to be transparent, but I have to communicate it in the right way.
Yes.
I have to communicate it so that it builds trust and cooperation, so that people understand that there are some things that, whether it's privacy issues or whether it's security issues or there are some things we can't totally be transparent about.
That's right.
Because if we are, we got a problem. But a leader has to have the guts to stand up and say that,
Yes.
to say, this is the reason we can't.
Right.
And that communication aspect is so important.
Y'all are bringing up something that you talked about, my side of things. When you're the artist, a lot of times your tour manager and your manager, your agent, they don't want to tell you certain things because they feel like it'll mess with the vibe, mess with your mojo. You may be a little sensitive or whatever. You're about to do a show. Maybe the promoter's upset at something you didn't do or something before you show up. There's all these little things that are hidden from the artist, right?
Yes.
Right.
When we do our show, my resident show for Viking Cruise Line, when they come ashore, it is the most unique thing. And I was accustomed to not knowing about the 4 people that may have needed earplugs, or the 4, because it's a concert. The 4 people that was the air condition was blowing on them on each side. It's an old building, old school, almost one's part of it's pre-flood, 1927, the
Wow.
27, the other one's barely past 27, built after the flood. And so you can imagine these big rooms and all that. So I know when somebody's not happy about a certain amount, maybe a vegetarian or whatever, we know every little thing. So Viking and my team and Viking this is the most transparent thing I've ever done in my life. So we want every single person. They want every single person to be as happy as you can possibly be. And a lot of people in our business on the other side, well, you can't please them all, right? You say that. Well, that's not the way we do things, and that's not the way Viking does things. And so one person or one couple can change a lot of what we do because we want to make sure that those two people are very happy.
That's right.
So we've done a lot of pivoting, taken a lot of curveballs, and we've knocked them all out of the park because we are listening to each other. We're communicating, Mike, as you said, and we don't want any secrets because we want the experience to be great for everyone. And this is the first time in my musical career that I've ever been involved with all of that and knowing everything that's happening and accepting certain things when I go entertain. Oh, by the way, they had a toughest time getting to Memphis. It was awful. I mean, now they've been driven here. They missed the first parts of the excursion and and you guys are the first thing that they're going to experience. And we go over and beyond. We want to know that they've gone through that so we can bend over backwards and let them feel as much love as possible so we can catch them up on that Viking experience that they were supposed to have because they missed the first, 20 hours of it. And it was impossible getting to Memphis or New Orleans, how they do it. And, but we want to be a part of the solution, and so do they.
Yeah.
So we keep those secrets between us.
So
and it's awesome.
In that exact example, transparency worked as an answer to the question why, right? So transparency shows why we're doing what we're doing. Generally speaking, that's the key piece.
Yeah.
So it's not just that these people they're important, you need to take care of them. No, they had a terrible time. And maybe they're grumpy right now, but here's why they're grumpy. And so when you understand that, okay, now I have
use 4 flights. It's hard.
The capability for compassion and everything else. So one of my comments to leaders frequently, and really to everybody, is to deliver open motive communication. So instead of just saying, do this, tell me why we're going to say, go do this. There's a Denzel Washington movie where he's on a submarine. I can't think of the name of it, but at the end of the movie, he starts barking orders because World War III is about to start. But what he does is he says, I need you to go downstairs and I need you to plug A into B and B into C and D and E. If we don't do that, then we're going to lose all communications. If we lose all communications, we're dead. I need you to go do this and that and this and that and this and that, because if we don't do that, then we're going to sink and we're going to die. And so he's giving the orders, but he's telling them why. And in each case in the movie, the person comes back and says, well, when I went down there, I couldn't do what you told me to do, but because I knew what was going to happen if I didn't get it done, I was able to innovate. I was able to change. So when you tell somebody why, what you do is you empower that person. And that's really what transparency should do, is it should leave you with a sense of, now I know how I can use my sense of agency and innovation to make this a better situation and not just roll over.
So as an entertainer, I've had to learn to accept that there's a situation and we got to go win them over because they've had a tough trip getting to us.
That's right.
They didn't even get into the boat and finally starting to be able to unwind and relax and experience all this history and culture and be educated, which is what they're all about. But I got to tell you, I'm impressed how, and we know everybody on the Viking team. So, there's hugs when we see each other. It's like one big team. And we're all in for the same mission to make every single person extraordinarily happy. Leave them with the best. And I love that they're that way. But in my big tour bus days for all those years and all those, a decade and a half, whatever it was, when I was on the back of the bus, 2 decades, there was a lot of things that were kept from me.
Yeah.
Maybe to protect me.
Yeah. And I think that this idea, and Randy, you alluded to it, this idea of transparency is a two-way street. Because from a leadership perspective, Steve, you and the Viking folks, the Viking leaders have said this is what you want. You want to make these people happy, but you've also empowered your people to understand and be transparent, to come back to you, to say, hey, we've got this person that's got this, or we've got this situation that's come up here. If it was opposite of that, if there was no transparency, then they're going to sweep that under the rug and say, oh, I'm not going to bother them with it.
Yeah.
I think it's really important. And that gets into the whole conversation about profound hospitality, which is really understanding what we can do, what we can do to make those people happy, but understanding that if our people aren't happy, if our people haven't been communicated to, if you haven't been transparent with them, as this is why we're trying to do what we're trying to do, there's absolutely no way that they're going to be able to deliver on that idea of profound hospitality.
That's right. I'm picking up what you're putting down, man. That's it. So here's a maxim that can come out of that. The success of your organization is correlated directly to the ability for negative information to come from the ground to the top.
Wait, you got to do that one more time for me.
So
One more time.
the degree to which your organization allows negative information to flow seamlessly up through leadership, transparently to leadership, that will determine a lot about the wellness of your whole organization. So if you have a mid-manager level who knows that that their boss is going to get really steamed if they hear that there were 5 unhappy customers, then what they're going to do is they're going to try to, shellac those 5 customers. They may take care of the customers, but now that negative information, what caused the unhappiness for the customer, was never discussed. So management's just walking along thinking everything is groovy, and it isn't groovy. And so now there can be systemic rot that begins to occur in an organization, and the managers, especially if they're crappy managers, will never get that information. And that there has to be an explicit expectation that negative stuff should come to the top, and I'm not going to get my hand smacked because I'm the person who said, we just screwed up with 10 important customers, right? And it's, well, my God, that's your problem. You're out of here.
And vice versa of that. The negative information has to flow down as well.
That's right. Well said.
If the leaders are trying to paint this rosy picture that everything's perfect, everything's wonderful, when it's not, then you've got a blockage in that flow going both ways.
And you got big trouble.
And that's what's so important about that, is that they have to be able to go both ways.
I love that you use the phrase paint, because in our company, we talk about painting the pain. We'll go in and we'll say, if we're going to try and make a connection with a client, what we want to do is go in and talk to them in a way that lets them know we understand where they're suffering. We'll say, oh, well, they'll say, well, our numbers weren't so good. And then we'll go, okay, well, that means these other 3 things have probably happened. Well, yeah, that's true. And if those 3 things have happened, then this other thing has happened. Oh my God, that's right. So what we want to do is we want to paint the pain so that we have a shared understanding, and then more trust develops. So then they do begin to relax and open up the kimono.
Well, it's just making me think of a lot of things that I would have never thought about with this conversation of transparency.
That's why it's such a big doggone word, and everybody throws it around, right? Oh, yeah, be transparent, but it's a deal. Transparency is, Mike, I think you're spot on. It implies this contract almost with the person.
There's a heck of a feeling though when something is negative, and because you're transparent, it's in the room, or it's there, it's around you, and then you flip it and turn it into something so beautiful and a win. And there's a magic to that, Well,
this is true in human relationships too. I mean, when you talk about people being married, and I know that we've all been, on the marriage go round for a good while. And so talk about transparency, in a marriage. What does that look like? Well, it varies tremendously from a lot of the younger folks these days. It never occurred to Patty and I to have separate accounts, right? But that's a thing now. That was back in my day, though. That's what you did.
People do that.
You put all your money into one bucket.
For one person. That's what they said when we took our vows.
You're one person, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so nowadays, though, I'm talking to lots of young people, and they're like, "Why would you do that? That seems goofy," And I guess there's a lot of financial reasons why maybe it does make more sense to keep things separate. I don't know. Certainly, it would make a divorce easier, I think, because I can just.
Then you have to say who's buying tonight.
Well, I know.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right.
Goodness,
I know, but
I'm not going to keep score.
So transparency is something that is a part of the human condition. And I would say that there is even transparency in your own intrapersonal communication. And that is, so you maybe did something not so good. And so now you haven't told anybody that. But now that's in this area of your mind that's 2 sociologists, Joseph Luft and Harry Ingram, back in the day, said it's a hidden area. So you have a hidden area in your mind, stuff that you know about yourself, but nobody else knows about you, right? And that's what you want it to be. What we know is the bigger that hidden area is in your brain, the more dysfunctional you will become, the less adaptive you will be, the more likely you will be to suffer from depression and other significant emotional problems. So one of the reasons that men actually do begin to share is because they've got this huge hidden area full of junk. And then finally, maybe because of Jack Daniels or because of something else, they start. And the number one reason men disclose is catharsis, just to get it off their chest. I've had all this on my mind for so long. I'm just going to say it. I don't care what you think of me now. I'm just going to finally let it out. And it's catharsis is that freeing thing. May get you arrested or in trouble too. but
Us Catholics, we just go to confession.
this is it.
Yeah.
No, this is it. And how powerful is that, right? To be able to go and sit down and say, I have this thing I need to get out. And I know I can do it in this way where I can be right with God and it's all good. And I'm still not going to have to shatter potentially my whole life because of the secret I'm carrying around. And so,
Sure.
People that have gone through abuse and all kinds of other things, they're walking around with this stuff in their head. And so this idea of transparency can mean a whole different thing to them. It can really be a gut twister. It is a profound thing. And then there's a blind area where you know things about me that I don't know about me, right? So your perception of me is another area of vulnerability. So this is where I call it the spinach in the teeth thing. I want you, if I got some big old thing right here, I want you to go, dude, friggin' brush your teeth, man. Come on. It's nasty.
Hey, Mike, you something? Mike.
Yeah.
So if we're in confession, can we be a little bit general in topic without being so transparent and so exact and be forgiven?
That's a great. I just had a conversation with somebody about that the other day. So we were at a mass in the Twin Cities, and I won't name the priest, but he's a wonderful Irish priest. And his homily that day happened to be about confession. And he said, it's great that you guys are coming to confession. We want you to come to confession. We want you to participate in the sacrament. But when you come in, just give me the sin. I don't want the backstory. I don't want the details. Just give me the sin.
Give me the sin. There's a song on that. There's a song in that.
There is. I think
it got to be a song in that one. Yeah, exactly. I think one other thing about this idea of transparency is the delivery of bad news.
Yes.
And leaders have to deal with this constantly. And I remember reading a story, and I don't remember the company, but I remember reading a story about a manufacturing company that shortly after 2008 was going through some real financial issues. And several of their peers and competitors in that area were closing down. They were shutting down. They were going out of business. They were going bankrupt, whatever the case may be. And the CEO of this company was just racking his brain trying to figure out how in the world I can keep this place open and how many people am I going to have to lay off to do that. And the idea came to him that he's thought, I want everybody to share in this pain. I don't want those people that get laid off have the most pain, and those people that keep their jobs, only have a little bit of pain. And so he brought it to the employees. He said, here's our situation. We have to reduce payroll. Is there something that you guys can come up with that would allow us to do that without laying anybody off? And so they brainstormed about it. And what they found out is there were a lot of people that had PTO and vacation time and those kinds of things, and they weren't using it. And so they figured out a way to allow people to trade off. So if somebody had to be out a week to take care of a sick kid, and somebody else had vacation that they weren't using, they'd give them that so that they could keep their job. They weren't having to come back and forth. And the amazing thing about that is when they kind of came back and announced that to all of the employees, something incredible started happening, because all of a sudden they had people figuring out, well, I can work for you then if you can work for me here. Or, trading time back and forth. They never missed a beat. They never laid off a single person, and they actually grew the company and grew it stronger based on that philosophy. So again, if you've got to deliver bad news and you've got to be transparent about it, as Benedict would say, let people have a seat at the table. Let everybody get a seat at the table and start talking about how we solve that problem.
How many times have you heard that happen that way, where they've let them have us?
It's
exactly. Normally it's just chop them off,
It's fun, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Gosh, what a great concept. And the fact that it worked. And then back to our last podcast, we were talking about generosity. Then into that with everybody giving of themselves to figure out how they can make it work as a unit.
Absolutely.
Pretty
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely. I mean, it was really a really cool story.
The trick there was that everybody in that room trusted what the boss was saying about why this was happening. It wasn't, well, I get $1 gazillion, and so you guys, it's terrible that you guys don't, but this is what's going to happen. But there was some level of trust. They believed him. His motives were clear of what he was trying to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
And
think
if I remember right, he came to them and said, "I'm going to take $1 in salary for the next year."
there you go. Talk about putting it on the table.
Yeah.
You know, I had Cliff Levingston from the Chicago Bulls. Well, he played for a number of teams, the Detroit Pistons first, and the Atlanta Hawks. And then he played with Isaiah Thomas and Dominic Wilkins. And then he played with Michael Jordan and won 2 NBA titles. And the reason he got over there was the salary cap was already met. And so Michael said, I'll give him some of my salary because he knew he needed him. And so
Wow.
I guess they had to be transparent with Michael about, hey, you can't have Cliff Levingston because there's no money left
Right.
with all the players. And he was the one that goes, he can have some of my salary.
Oh, that's a great story.
Yeah.
Right.
Really amazing. Really amazing. And then they won. And then Jordan, you know, and Pippen and those guys, they won 2 more. And Cliff was part of that.
Wow.
That team, you know, it's amazing. Amazing.
And so there you go. I mean, it's one of those things where if you have an orientation that says, I'm going to be a healthier person and I'm going to have a healthier company to the degree that I can maximize transparency, doesn't mean you can always do it. If you're a physician or you've got other kinds of fiduciary, that's a fancy word for legal reasons why you can't say or do things, that's different. That's totally different. I've been reading a book about Bletchley Park, which was the code breaking group in London that broke the Nazi Enigma code with the Enigma machine. And so you had these code breakers that were in there working around the clock, and they were just all nerds. These were the nerdiest nerds of all time, but they were literally crucial to winning the war effort. And when you were at Bletchley Park, they would say, you can't talk to anybody about anything, even if they work here. So everything here is so compartmentalized that there is zero. You have to just walk around carrying all these secrets all the time. And the book has gotten into all of the kinds of shenanigans that these people would go through to avoid having any conversations that would in any way break this, because they would hang you. So it would be instant treason. So, I mean, it wasn't like, you know, oh, you can't do that, we're going to fire you. No. This was serious business. And a good, you know, I think at least 50% of them were women. The Wrens, WRENS, that they were called. And so when you look at how dramatic the effect is to be in an environment where everything is secret, that was a weight that they had to carry above and beyond the work that they were actually doing. And certainly that's a lot of what's going on now as people are in businesses where they can't talk about anything. That's a challenging job to be in.
Yeah.
Right. And I would argue that the long-term effect of that is detrimental to any organization.
Absolutely.
You might be able to do it short-term. You might be able to do it in a crisis environment like that and those kinds of things. But to do that long-term, I don't think you have a healthy organization that survives.
Right. That's where the submarine people, the U.S. submarine groups, are very interesting to me, because every single thing that goes on in a nuclear submarine is double, triple top secret. And yet these are just guys and women that are doing their lives and having babies and, you know, living and so forth, but they can say nothing.
Yeah, but they say everything to each other when they're on that submarine.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Inside the room, it's pretty exactly. Well said. And an important distinction, Steve.
Between the two, right.
Yeah.
In that situation. Right,
so, when we're out there on a 6-month cruise, it's all on the table. But
how does that talk about that? Exactly, when you're on the cruise. So let's talk about that. How do you separate yourself from, so at the workplace, you're totally transparent, right? And you come home and say your spouse is interested in what's going on there.
Right.
So how do you remain secretive in that regard? I mean, I guess you have to respect that, I know, but does that always work in a relationship when you get home? There's secrets from work that direction to the house.
Stupid question. I mean, you know, I live that every day with my wife, Ann. You know, she's a realtor. I'm a business coach. And both of us have agreements with our clients that we're not going to talk about what we work with on them,
Right.
you know, and so we both do that. Now, we can have general conversations about things, but we're not going to get into the specifics because we have a situation where we can't, where we're contractually obligated not to get into specifics about who we're working with. So I think you can still do it. You can still do it from a healthy standpoint. It's not like I'm trying to keep a secret from her. She knows my work, or she's not trying to keep a secret from me. But we also know that, you know, we can't really get into the gory details of who we're working with and what we're doing and all those kinds of things. So I think there's a very healthy way to do that that isn't keeping secrets per se.
Yeah, and I'm in that situation where I don't want to know. You know, if don't
Yeah, yeah,
I
right,
don't want to have to hold on to that secret.
right.
With
I
Gwen,
remember
a lot of times, with my Gwen, a lot of times I could be telling her something and I could tell her the greatest secret in the entire world that I wasn't supposed to. And she'd go, "What? What'd you say?" And she's not paying attention. I get it off my chest and it's out.
Yeah.
And she didn't
There's
listen to it.
Catholicism at work one more time. Yes.
Gwen's exercising selective hearing.
What was
Let's
that?
just say she wasn't doing this. She was not listening.
Yes. I love it. I love it.
She got a lot
All
on her.
right, guys. Well, I think we're getting close to wrapping it here. Randy, you want to finish us up with a thought?
Sure. I think that the transparency is an opportunity. It's not something that is perfect. It's a goal. And I would encourage everybody to just take a minute to reflect on, are there places where I could be more transparent with my employees about why we're doing what we're doing, or why this thing has happened? And am I willing to accept negative information that lands on my desk without throwing a fit and actually trying to understand it and dig back into it? And then in my own personal life, am I not shoving more stuff into that part of my brain that says, well, you can never tell anybody about that, because I can tell you that is a track into doom if you keep doing that. So I think transparency is worth the time to meditate on. It's worth the time to think about and to talk about it as an organizational issue in your business. Those are my 2 cents.
Beautiful.
All right. Steve, take us home.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
I know.
But
I'm sorry to steal your thunder there, my friend.
it's amazing, how you just read these thoughts and just,
I know.
Yeah, no, I just think it's made me think of the difference in the way it is now for me when I'm so involved in the patron and the customer and the fan and who, the person there to see us with my resident show, because I'm all involved with everything that's going on, versus the way it was for me on the back of the bus and how much I didn't know. And which is better, I've come to learn to love being transparent way better, because you can fix things and make everybody as happy as possible, and you can get better at what we're doing as a unit.
Precisely.
Perfect.
Were you thinking that, Randy?
I was thinking that very same thing.
We're like one person.
Inconceivable. Thanks,
All
Mike.
right, guys. Well, let's wrap up this episode. Again, catch us on any of the major podcast platforms or resonanceleader.com. Give
And
us a
on
thumbs up.
And on YouTube.
Yep. And if you want to watch the video version, check it out on our channel on YouTube. We're all over the place. So we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. And thanks for joining us. See you guys.
Bye.
Resonanceleader.com. Later on. Thanks for listening to Resonance. Find us at resonanceleader.com.